welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Whatnauts review show number 163. For each week, we have a different story and we talk about it. Could be a movie, a comic, an anime, a manga, all sorts of things. We rate it, we watch it, we come back here and talk about it. This week is a little bit different, though. It is our end of the month special, which means we are continuing our coverage of one story unto the end of the whole thing. So here we are talking about season 2 of Dark, Netflix's German time travel show. And man, I am so excited to talk about this show today. My name is Kyle Springer, and I am joined, as always, by Melissa Wilkinson. Melissa.
Hello, Kyle. How are you this weekend?
I'm doing okay. I had an interesting thing with my groceries. I've been getting them delivered, and they didn't deliver half of the things that I bought. They just didn't show up. They said they had them, all that stuff, but then they also sent me things that I didn't buy, and it was like, well, did I get someone else's thing by mistake? But no, all of the stuff was still labeled as hey, this is what you bought, but I didn't, and I didn't get half of the stuff. So it was strange, but that was, I think, the most exciting, eventful thing that happened to me. So there you go. How are you, though?
I'm doing good. I've had a fine weekend. I've gotten to enjoy sunshine and enjoy rain.
Nice.
Go out to dinner, drink a cocktail, watch a movie.
Rain.
It's been a fine time.
Good stuff. That sounds relaxing. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Melissa, I mentioned we are here to talk about season 2 of Dark. This is a favorite of mine. I highly recommend it if you guys have not seen it yet. But if you haven't seen it yet, go watch it. Go watch season 1, and then you can also go watch our coverage of season 1 that we did last month. And next month, we will do season 3, the third and final season of Dark. But yeah, I'm so excited to talk about this one, because I've seen season 1 at least 3 times now, maybe 4.
Wow.
And this is only my second time seeing season 2 and 3.
Okay.
So it is me going back in, watching, knowing what happens, but still being still discovering new things. That's oh, I missed that. That's cool. All of that stuff there. So, spoiler-free thoughts first. Melissa, what did you think of season 2 of Dark?
I liked where season 2 went. One of the concerns of the show is that it is dark. It is what the title says on the tin. There's practically no fun or smiling. Don't know if I've ever heard a character laugh. It's incredibly grim. But season 2, we do get a flashback to a happier time, which I found incredibly valuable. And time travel nonsense gets almost preposterous enough that the tone of the show remains the same, but you and your viewing experience, it becomes more fun because everything is so bold now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so season 2, I believe, is the show's highest rated season. On Rotten Tomatoes, this got a 100% on the tomato meter and is still at that. And season 3 is sitting at a 97. So they're both
fine.
They're both super high. But yeah, I really enjoyed this show. When I was watching it last year, I was going through it being okay, this is kind of what I expected. This is a nice progression of the series. And then they hit you with something at the end, like right at the end. And I was just like, what? What the hell?
Yeah.
What is going on? And I loved it. Like, I think at the time, I if I'm not mistaken, I was on the phone with my girlfriend as I was watching it. And then she heard me like freaking out and be like, what's wrong? What's going on? I was like, no, I'm watching the show. It's great. It's amazing. But I just didn't expect this. And I think, yeah, now having gone into season 2, I think the show does a really, really good job of like establishing not necessarily a pattern, or not necessarily a set of rules, but a structure for you to follow and in which to understand it. And then they slowly add more to it, and then they slowly take away things. So it's not like this big. It's not chaos that this stuff is happening in, but they start introducing new concepts, and then being like, well, that one concept that we told you about, we're breaking it, we're changing it now, we're gonna go do this. And so I think especially the ending of this season, that is where that like what the fuck moment came from for me, because it was like I was expecting a certain pattern or a certain like progression, and then something completely outside of that happened, and I was just like, oh my goodness, they've opened this up to so much more. So yeah, I enjoyed this a lot. Again, spoiler free, do you have a favorite character that you're enjoying now that we're deep into season 2?
I really like 1980s Claudia.
Okay.
She's good.
Okay.
I also love Bernadette because she's a side character who just exists in town and is not involved in any time travel stuff. And we see her very sparingly. And I like that there's a couple people in the town who are safe from all of this nonsense. You just get to visit them every once in a while as a break.
Yeah. I still really like Elizabeth. This is the girl who speaks in sign language, and we see a little bit more of her in this one, but we see a version of her in the future. And it's interesting to see like where she is from what we've seen her mostly to where she will be. And that is like, whoa, what happened here? What's going on? So I still really like her character. That one's mine. Man, yeah, I really enjoy this show. So to catch people up a little bit, still trying to be spoiler free at the moment. For the plot of season 2, I feel like I would describe it more as Jonas has now been on this. He's discovered this like time travel conspiracy thing that's happening within the town. He knows that his father was also Mikkel Nielsen, and so he is kind of on this journey, this time travel journey that his future self has kind of sent him on, to be like, hey, I need you to go through all the same things that I went through so that you can make the same choices that I made to get to where I am now, so that we can stop this whole thing. And very quickly they realize that's not going to work. And Yeah, so they're trying to figure out what to do next. At the same time, the town is also kind of catching up. The like present day version of the town is starting to discover all the interconnectedness and all the time travel and stuff like that. And they still aren't privy to everything and all of that stuff, but a lot of the drama and the heartbreak and the sadness and all the secrets have to do with them like finding out that time travel is real, or they found out 2 weeks ago and they didn't tell anyone and blah blah blah, and all of that stuff. So it's kind of a natural progression of where season 1 left off, but that's kind of what's happening here in this one. Do you feel like I could say something else to fill in that?
Yeah. Jonas is arguably the protagonist of the story. When we left him in season 1, he's jumped forward another cycle. You were right when you were talking earlier about how the show has like as much time travel nonsense as it has. It's time travel nonsense along a set pattern. There's these repeating loops. We see the characters in 1953, 1986, and 2019. And like we're stuck in this one town in those 3 eras that kind of helps regiment it. And then at the end of season 1, Jonas goes forward 33 years to like a post-apocalyptic version of the city. And then he has to get out of there. He encounters himself from the future again, and they're trying to work on a plan where they can stop everything. And there are other forces that are trying to tell them this isn't going to work the way you think it's going to work.
Yeah, indeed. You mentioned the post-apocalyptic future, which I guess the last thing we should say about the plot of the S1 is that in the present day, most of the characters don't know it, but they are kind of racing against time because the apocalypse that has already happened in the future is about to happen. They have like 6 days. And I think it's only Jonas that like truly knows. There's a couple other characters who are more involved that know this, but it's mainly him being like, I need to stop the apocalypse.
And I'll say that by the end of the season, almost everybody is now aware time travel is happening. Which I feel like isn't that much of a spoiler because, like, by the end of season 2 of a 3-season show, that's about when that would happen. And to watch how characters learn about it and how that affects their interactions with each other is a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Okay. That is, I guess, it for all of our spoiler-free thoughts and plot synopsis stuff to catch you all up. We will take a quick break for housekeeping, and we will be right back. We put a lot of hard work into the shows that we make, and yes, we make multiple different shows here at the Whatnauts, and we'd love it if you would check them all out. You can find out more information on our website at thewhatnauts.com, as well as your favorite podcasting platform of choice. When you type in the Whatnauts, all of our shows will pop up right there. Just don't forget to give us a nice rating and review if you like the shows. If you want to support what we do here at The Whatnauts, patreon.com/The Whatnauts is the best place to do that. You can support us for as little as $1 a month. You can get all kinds of exclusive content at the $3 tier. You can also get a shout out and thank you on all of our shows at the $5 tier. You can support us on Twitch by subscribing to our channel at twitch.tv/The Whatnauts, and we would love to have you all join us for our live streams and talk with us in the chat. And lastly, we have merch. If you want to grab yourself a shirt or a sweatshirt or a mug or something else, go to thewhatnauts.com/store to pick up some merch today. And we are back. Big shout out to our Patreon supporters at the $5 tier and above. So thank you, Sam, so much for helping us out.
Sam.
We appreciate it. Excuse me. we appreciate it and we love you a lot. Yeah, it means a lot to us. That being said, this week we had our first annual trivia night on the Captain's Log, and that was a lot of fun. We did this last year as well, so here we are back again doing it. It was myself and Melissa and Ignacio from Crossplay, our video game podcast. So you guys should absolutely go check that out. I got my butt whooped. I am terrible at trivia.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, but it was a lot of fun regardless. Yeah, and you might learn something there. So who knows?
I hope
we
you
had
do.
A good time. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Melissa, let us go into spoilers. That was real choppy on my end.
Yeah.
Oh well.
We got the point across. We know what happened.
It happens, yeah. We're in spoilers. Bam. Yeah, so I have to start with the what the fuck moment.
Yes.
At the end and here, because this is like when I was watching this last year, I legitimately like sat up in my bed. I was like, oh my God, what is happening? Like, what are they doing?
Right. This does not seem like a place that this show would go because it's so serious.
Right. That, but like I mentioned, based on the kind of structure they've set up, like they haven't really introduced the many worlds to Harry and all of that stuff.
Oh.
Not to say that they can't, but it is this like, hey, we're on this like single timeline. If you go back in time and do like, you're still all on the same timeline. And then the ending of season 2, a major character gets shot.
And we're talking about different things, Kyle. No, go ahead and talk about the alternate dimension, because I'm completely stuck on Elizabeth being her own grandmother. That's all I can think about.
Sure. That's
the more bonkers twist for me.
An interesting one for sure, yeah. But yeah, so and again, I'm always terrible with names. It's her name is Martha. Martha gets shot. Martha, why'd you say that name? She gets shot and killed. And Jonas, who's on again, off again, in love with her, we're a perfect match. We're not. You're my aunt. That's weird. All of that stuff is beside himself with like I just lost you. The apocalypse is like right now. What do I do? And as he's doing that, a Martha with shorter hair and with darker hair walks in all black and is like, come with me if you want to live.
It's perfect. It's the perfect like edgy goth alternate future.
Absolutely. It's great. And she comes in and he's confused because he's like, but you're dead. You can't be from the future, but you never looked like that in the past. So when are you from? And she responds with it's not when I'm from, but what world. And it's like, it's so dumb, but it's so just like, this is amazing. Like, I had no idea this show was about to go into all of this stuff.
I'm so excited to go to the goth world.
Right? Oh, man. I loved it. It was so good. And one thing I do have to say that I noticed this time, they foreshadowed this moment so much in this season. They go... The camera will pan and will stop on the spot on the floor where she dies like 3 or 4 times. And then future Jonas, a.k.a. the Stranger, I believe is what they call him, or is what he's credited as.
Okay, so like the Jonas we have is like 18 years old. There's a Jonas who's like 40 years old who's called the Stranger. And then we find out there's an additional future Jonas.
Indeed, named Adam, which we'll circle back around to in a bit. But we know that the stranger has already experienced this stuff, and he knows what's coming and what's happening. So he already knows about the like many world stuff. And you can see him like when he's at his house, he will look at that spot and look sadly at that spot, like, man, like that moment sucked. And like there is this theme of like, hey, there are certain moments that will change you, right? And so he keeps looking at that spot, and knowing that was coming, I was like, oh shit, they foreshadowed this like the entire time. This is great. So yeah, it was good. So that was the big like end of season 2. Like, what in the world? What is going on?
See, now I have to talk about Elizabeth being her own grandmother, because we learned that her mother, Charlotte, she grew up with H.G. Tannhaus, who she calls her grandfather, and then later she admits, he's not really my grandfather. He adopted me after my parents died. I never really knew my parents. They died when I was a baby. And we find out that Noah is her father, but he doesn't tell her who her mother is. He just says, oh, your mother, you look like her. She would be so proud of you. So there's that mystery. Like, now that she knows her father, she's like dying to find out who her mother is. Mm-hmm. And there's a scene in the future where post-apocalyptic adult Elizabeth has these pictures of like, we've already seen a picture of like Noah and baby Charlotte, but now she's got a picture of Noah and baby Charlotte and a blonde woman that I thought, oh, just looks like her because that's her grandmother. You may look like your grandmother. I thought that's just another blonde woman. And she's looking at it so fondly for love for her mother. And then it finds out, no, that is her. That's the same blonde woman. That's also her. She's looking with fondness on her daughter, who is also her mother, because we meet a young Noah in this series who's like the middle school age. He shows up in this season in a previous flashback. We go back like another cycle from like 1953 to like 1921. We meet him there. And at the end of the show, it winds up with this motley assortment of characters in Helge's bunker. Yep. And it includes the contemporary, like 10-year-old Elizabeth, and then young Noah. And those two kind of look at each other. And like everything locks in for you. Every time it was cross-cutting, like between Elizabeth
them,
and Charlotte. It's a path that goes two ways. She gave birth to her mother, who then gave birth to her, because she went back in time and had this baby with Noah. And like, time travel wise, I get it. Biologically, I don't understand how this was allowed.
It's time travel shenanigans. Farai is his own grandfather, right?
But that's on a sitcom. That's on a show that has some real science to it. Like, half the writers are like Harvard doctorates. It's so goofy. And to have
they introduced what I think H.G. Tannhauser said was the bootstrap Harry, which we get a lot of those in this, which is like something that exists, goes back in time, and then like causes its own existence to this thing, so that there is no like, it's just this consistent loop where there is no start, there is no ending. It is just this big loop, which is what that family is.
Yeah. See, when he introduced that, I figured this must be happening with some character. But I thought it would be over the course of an entire lineage, like several generations, not the direct, very small loop of you're your own grandmother. I thought it would be like, you're your own great grandmother. Like, I thought the loop would be longer than that. To have it be that small, it's really preposterous. I'm not against it. I think it adds like an energy the show really needs. Like I said, it's so grim. I love when they throw in something that is so wild as this. Like, it doesn't affect the tone of the show, but it's still like you're laughing watching it, even if nothing truly funny is happening. It's just cosmically funny.
Yeah. It's a really interesting revelation. And because they do the thing where the young Noah meets Elizabeth, and they don't have that hang of like, oh, you're cute, like, hey, what's up? Yeah, I noticed you from across the bunker. How are you? But they do lock eyes, and they like the camera makes it obvious that like, hey, this is the first time that they meet, and this is where they're gonna like. Well, I guess not. This is the location, but this is where they meet and fall in love. And down the road, they will have a baby and go back in time. Who knows? But yeah, they introduced that bootstrap theory, and it's not only them that this is working for. This whole timeline, this whole thing is just one big bootstrap theory, because they keep bringing up the question of like, when is the beginning, when is the end here? And another one of the big revelations that we get is that it is in fact Jonas who kind of causes his father to hang himself and do all like he thinks he can go back and have a talk with him and stop it and be like, hey, don't do this, all of that stuff. But then things happen in a certain way where it's like, actually, I think you coming back here is the thing that solidifies it, that I should do this so that like all of this stuff can continue to happen, so that down the road we can figure something else out. And it is another one of those like deeply tragic moments for Jonas. That is just like, man, like he's just getting hit left and right with like he's the one that causes his father to be like, yes, I'm gonna commit suicide and all that stuff, and then like the next day Martha gets shot like right in front of him and killed. That's a lot. Holy hell.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's having a rough time right now. But man, something that I want to commend this show for is the casting. The casting on this show is incredible. I think all of the actors have done an incredible job. There's no one that I felt like, well, they're just kind of phoning it in and stuff like that. They're all wonderful. But when you see the different versions of these characters, they all look like what they would look like. In this, it's like, that makes sense that you would look like this. You have the same nose as that guy. Are you actually related to that guy? Like, what is going on here? It's amazing.
And like, even if somebody doesn't look perfect, like they still feel right. Like Egon through the generations always feels like Egon.
Great.
Right. There is when you see Adam talking to some old. I say some old guy. He's like 50 years old. He's older than like the crop of teens that we have in the show. And he's talking to this guy and he's like, yes, Magnus, this is the plan. Like, I should have known. Now that I know that look at him, that's a perfect Magnus. Right. And I was like, that must be Francesca next to him.
Yeah.
And they're also distantly related. The show is harping on how like Martha is Jonas's aunt, but if Noah is Charlotte's dad and Francisca is Charlotte's daughter. All right, Noah's sister is Agnes, who's Ulrich's grandmother. So that's Magnus's great-great-grandmother. So they're also like cousins of some kind.
Yeah, like cousins thrice removed somehow, some way. But yeah, I mean, like they like that is, I think, one of the baffling things about this show is how they found these people to be in the show and how they're all great actors. It's just like, this is amazing.
Yeah, and
yeah, I
always think
love it a lot. It's great.
It's always fun to go to these international shows where we don't know anybody. I remember talking about this when we talked about The Forest. How I was wondering, do these actors have any reputations, any past roles in France? You know, this was a French show we were watching that would color the performances that they're giving now. Like, was it shocking to have this guy play a murderer because he's always played a nice fatherly figure and other things? Like, I really have no idea the context of these roles in anybody's careers. So, like, I'm coming to it with, like, such a blank slate, seeing everybody for the first time. I don't know if I'll ever see these actors again. It's a nice special time to get to spend with them. Everybody's got such an interesting face to watch.
Yeah, there is.
They're so great looking.
Now that we're on the subject of actors, I don't know the actor's name. I don't know if this is exactly true. There's another show on Netflix that is also German that I really, really enjoy called Babylon Berlin. And if I'm not mistaken, there is it's like the police. The mortician, the guy that works in the police and does all the autopsies and stuff like that.
Yeah,
has basically the same role in this show, where he is the I think when they were in season 1, when they were investigating like all those the sheep that died and stuff like that, he is the one that is performing the autopsy on them, and he's the only one that I'm like, wait, is that the guy from this other show? But beyond that, I don't know who these actors are and stuff like that. But yeah, that it's neat to go into this with such a blank slate and just be like, I'm open for anything. Just go for it.
Yeah.
Good stuff there. Melissa,
when
we were talking about season 1, you were interested about the Tiedemans, the guy that is now running, or is in current day is running the nuclear power plant, and what his story was, because in the 80s he shows up with a gunshot wound, and that's about all we know about him, and we don't find out his story until season 2. What did you think of all of that stuff?
I thought that was great. The Tiedemans are still my favorite family in this.
Sure.
They're wrapped up in time travel nonsense, but they're separated from a lot of the social nonsense. Like, there's no adultery or affairs or anything going on over there. You just know that, like, Hannah is Alexander's physiotherapist, and she tries to blackmail him into ruining Ulrich's life, which then goes nowhere because Ulrich disappears back into the 1950s. And that Ulrich and Katerina hate Regina, and she also hates them. and that's it. That's all we really need to know. I think they're great. And last season, early on in the season, I was talking about how, like, noticing the family tree on the official website, like, oh, he took his wife's maiden name. That's interesting. I was theorizing maybe he's somebody who got lost in time, and he couldn't use his the family name he came with because that would, like, cause too many questions. So he's like, I'll just take my wife's name. And we have an external detective coming into Winden this season, and, like, that's the first thing he latches onto. Like, do you think it's weird that this guy took his wife's name? Is he trying to hide something?
Well, he immediately comes in and is like, I'm here to help things out and discover, why these children keep going missing. So he's investigating from this outside perspective to be to find all of these secrets and stuff. And he very quickly realizes that everyone has a secret. Everyone is hiding something. But everyone is also questioning, like, why are you here? Like, why did you take this job? Why did they only send one person? He's like, well, I volunteered. So it's maybe not that they were like, hey, we need someone down in Winden to figure out what's going on. But it wasn't clear at first, but he has this ulterior motive to be here in Winden. And it was that a long time ago, back in the 1980s, his brother mysteriously got killed and they never found him. And it turns out that his brother was killed by Alexander Kohler, because his name was Alexander Kohler. And so he shot him, killed him, took his identity and ran off to Winden, where he became Alexander Kohler for a while, and then married into the Tiedemann family to be Alexander Tiedemann. And he's been sitting there. Now he's running the nuclear power plant. But this detective like almost immediately zeroes in on like this guy. This guy, I think, murdered my brother. I might not be able to prove it, but he's the one. But yeah, so he has that whole thing, but he doesn't know about the time travel. I think he's like one of the only characters that has no idea about any of this time travel stuff now.
Which is so valuable. It's basically him. His name's Clausen. It's like him, Wooler, who's the detective with the eye patch, and Bernadette, the sex worker, who we find out is Wooler's sister within a very sweet scene. I'm happy we get that little interaction between the two of them where we see him coming out of her trailer and you think maybe he would be a client, and instead he hugs her and he says, like, Mom would like it if you called.
Call Mom, yeah. Yeah.
I'm so happy that we get this sprinkling of characters who are part of the town. They become part of the town, like Clausen's getting in everybody's business, but they're not part of any kind of affairs or secrets besides what happened to Wooler's eye. Or they're not in on the time travel. Like, they're part of the town, but they're outsiders to every other part of the narrative. And it was so good to have these breaks in the story where we go see something that has nothing to do with time travel. It's strictly just regular crime procedural.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I have a quick theory. I mentioned last time that there's lots of secrets and mysteries here in this town. All of the ones that really matter will get addressed or solved and stuff like that, but there is the one that I mentioned that you never really find out what happened to Wooler's eye. And there is the scene in here where he's about to say the story, and then they almost hit Regina, right? No.
I think it's old Claudia.
It's Claudia from the 80s.
Right. No, it's not old Claudia.
Day.
It's middle Claudia.
Yeah. And yeah, so we never get that story. But the interesting thing is that Alexander Tiedemann always calls Wooler as his contact in the police department. I'm wondering if Wooler is an old friend of him before he kind of moved to this town. And like that is the one secret. Because he seems to like call him and be like, hey, set this thing up for me, or like do this thing. So he seems to have some influence over Wooler somehow, some way. We don't know. It's not explained, but it's just like, I wonder if like this is an accomplice somehow, or like a friend, or like someone he used to run with back in the day.
I don't know. I think Wooler looks a little too young for that. I don't know if he would have been somebody like who Alexander knew
younger,
even before then,
brother of a friend or something. I don't know.
Maybe
it's just a random theory because they don't explain it.
What he does tell, well, he's about to tell the story to Clausen, and he says, you can't tell this to anybody. And since Clausen's this incoming detective who's getting super into the secrets of the town, I don't know if he would tell him if it was something illicit, but maybe he would confess if it was something very embarrassing. Like, I just have to get this off my chest to somebody. I'm going to tell it to the guy who's not from this town and is probably going to leave in a couple weeks and never come back to the town.
Yeah, absolutely. It could have been like, I was arresting someone, and then they like beat me up and hit me in the eye, and that one hit, it just like it did something to my eye, and it was my first time. I didn't know what I was doing.
Right. I bet it's probably something very, very silly and embarrassing. I shot myself with a Nerf dart. Who knows?
Yeah. Okay, let's see what else. There's
I want to
so
talk a
much
bit more
stuff
about the Tiedemans.
Sure, let's do it.
There's some of my favorites because I think Alexander and Regina have the best romantic relationship out of anybody on the show.
Okay,
which isn't a very high standard that we have set, but at least within the contemporary timeline, they've got like the least amount of secrets. Like, I don't think she knows exactly what his past is, but she saw him stumbling out of the woods covered in blood back in 1986. So she knows he has some sort of criminal past. Maybe she did ask him. Maybe he did tell her. We don't know that level of secrecy within their marriage. But they're pretty open with each other. They're pretty caring. It seems like they've got a good relationship with Bartosz. There's a scene where Regina's cancer is progressing. It seems like she really could die soon. And Bartosz is like going out with the other kids to go do time travel stuff. You know that in the back of his head, he's like maybe trying to think about how he could prevent this, or maybe this is something Noah offered him. If you do these things, you could save your mother. And like he's just talking to her before he leaves, and he gives her the sweetest, most tender look that anybody has given anybody in the show within any relationship. And he like kisses her on the forehead before he leaves. It's so heartwarming. There's this little family who's just sort of off away from everything, who like most people like dislike or are suspicious of for some reason, but they seem like they function well within their little family unit.
Yeah.
I love the flashback to like a year or two before this, where it's Ulrich and Katarina's anniversary party. And so many of the characters are at this party, but like Bartosz says something to Martha about, he's like, oh, I can't go. Like we're having a party with my mom to celebrate like the anniversary of her hotel or something. And we see like all the characters at this party, and then we see just the three Tiedemans like just toasting each other at their dinner table. It's not really a party. It's just the three of them having this little quiet dinner.
It's great.
I like their existence. I like how they're like a shade separated from everything else, which unfortunately means we don't get to spend as much time with them as we do with other characters. I always want more of them.
Yeah.
I want to learn more about how they interact. Does Regina have a single friend? We don't know. Something this season gave me that I didn't realize I was missing is that it fleshed out some of the relationships between our main characters. Like, we go back and we see that party where Ulrich and Katarina have invited all these people to their house. And Katarina's having a great time. They're playing this 80s music and dancing. It's the only happy thing we've ever seen in this show. And she tries to pull like Charlotte off the couch. Like, Charlotte, come dance with me. And these two have never talked about anything except for like, where's my husband? Where's my son? So to see a time when they were friends and like they were trying to have fun with each other, to see those different interactions, like I think Charlotte goes to Hannah's house to talk, to bring her to talk about time travel or whatever. It's like, have you two talked to each other? We've got these major characters, and then this was a season I realized, like, as Charlotte talked to Regina, like there's these characters that I'm like, I'm not sure if you two really know each other that well. I'd love to see all the different like facets being added to this community of like, who, like, what is the relationship these people have socially?
Yeah. I feel like since the disappearance of Mikkel, there really hasn't been much time that's passed since then.
Yeah, it seems like
because it seems like that was the start
months.
of the summer. Yeah, maybe a couple months at most, like 3-4 months. But like there hasn't been much time that has passed, and so I think they are in a situation where it's like, they're not going to be talking about, so did you see the game last weekend? Well, you know, it's going to be like, where's my kid? What's going on? I don't know. And then they're all discovering time travel exists and that Mikkel went to school with us when we were kids, and like none of us remembered that there was a kid who looked oddly like him and stuff like so there's all sorts of strange stuff that's going on.
That party scene was so valuable to me because we got to go back and set kind of a social status quo for what this town is like before anybody disappears, before there's any time travel nonsense. We had to see these characters be happy, see them to be friends with each other briefly. Like, I wish it would have happened a little bit earlier. I like having that sort of stakes. Like, we've seen all these relationships in so much turmoil. Like, what are you when you're not in turmoil? I haven't seen that and took it till almost the end of season 2 to get that. The party scene's one of my favorite parts in this show so far for that emotional payoff. And we find out that this is where Ulrich and Hannah started sleeping with each other. And there's this great crosscut between the two of them, like, making out in the backyard. And then during the party, like, Mikkel's not feeling well, is up sick in his bed. And Katarina goes up there to comfort him. And so we've got Ulrich and Hannah together. And then split screen, the other panel is Katarina holding her son. But she's also holding this lady's husband while she's holding her husband.
Yep. It's an interesting visual. It's wild, the stuff that they can do with that. And stuff that, like, you don't necessarily realize at first. Because, your first instinct to be is like, oh, she's holding her kid. And then you're like, oh, she is holding this woman's husband while your husband is holding that woman. Like, So, it's kind of wild, the stuff that they can do with that visually. Like, we've seen the shots where it focuses on one person's face, like looking sternly into the distance or something, and then it switches to a different time, but on the same character looking sternly into the thing. So you see that, or they'll do the thing where it's like two characters are talking about someone, and then it will switch to that character, or something similar. And then you get stuff like this where it's just these interesting, like, oh, there's a second layer to this of what they're doing here. So great camera work and stuff like that. This show is so good. I love it.
It is. I want to talk a bit about Hannah since we've brought her up. She, the stranger, middle-aged Jonas, goes to her and introduces himself and explains everything. I'm Jonas. I'm Jonas from the future. I have time travel. I'll take you back to see your husband when he was Mikkel, the little boy. And explains everything to her. And what she ends up doing is taking his time travel briefcase and disappearing to the 1950s to where Ulrich went back to try and kill Helge to stop Mikkel from disappearing because he was still blaming Helge.
Where he's been arrested and put in jail.
Yeah, and she goes there like, I saw this picture in the newspaper. It might be my husband. I'm not sure. And Egon shows her the picture and she says, that could be him. There is a resemblance, which is such a great multi-layered line in that, yes, there is a resemblance because that is your husband's father.
Yeah. There is that, but it's also like the photography technology maybe isn't the best back then, right? So it's maybe not the clearest picture of like, well, I can see it's him, but maybe not. You know. So yeah, she goes back to that was a wild scene for me too, because I think Hannah is maybe one of not the worst in like worst acting or stuff like that, but she is one of the most like antagonistic characters in this show, and I don't like her because of that. But she does like such a good job of it. And this is, I think, a moment where that really shines, where she goes back, she meets Ulrich there, who has been stuck here for about a year and doesn't really know what's going on in modern day Winden. He doesn't know that like everyone is now discovering time travel and stuff like that. So he's just like, I just want to get home. Like, hey, if you get me out of here, I will leave my wife. I will be with you. I'll do anything. Get me out of here. And she's just like, yeah, that's not my husband. Sorry. And it's just like
cold.
You like, oh my God, you did everything you could to be with him. What are you doing? You're just screwing everything up. And yeah, cold-hearted indeed.
Yeah, and the fact that she's obsessed with Ulrich, but also vindictive about him. So you don't know if she's going back to like trap him in a relationship with her.
Get him in worse
No, she's going
trouble,
back for revenge, to like give him this opportunity for salvation and then throw it back in his face. Like, no, you're going to be stuck in jail for decades. And then she's still got the briefcase, and she just goes off in 1953 to just start a new life. It doesn't seem like she has any intention to like go back to 2019 where she came from, because she doesn't have Ulrich, she doesn't have Michael, she doesn't have Jonas. Seemingly there's nothing else keeping her there. So
she does go back.
Seemingly going to like gallivant through time and find a new place to live, which makes me think of that line in season 1 where the Nielsen's first come to stay at the Tiedemann house, and Agnes is mentioning, oh, I had a grandmother who used to live in this town, and she always spoke very, very highly of it, so I thought I would come stay here. And Egon Tiedemann's like, really? What was your grandmother's name? And then they get cut off. Like, I wonder if Hannah kept going back in time, because she's not using her real name when she goes back in time. She goes to the police and she's like, yes, my name is Katarina Nielsen. Did she find herself several generations back still living under the name Nielsen? Is she the grandmother that Agnes was talking about?
I don't remember. I don't think so. But I don't know now that you mention it, because I guess I just assumed that she went back, and I don't remember enough about season 3 to or what happened to her in season 3 to answer that. So interesting.
And she's done so much already that, like, if that was the last time we saw Hannah, I wouldn't be disappointed necessarily. Like, she's a fascinating character. I really like that performance. But for her to just walk off in 1953 with a time travel briefcase with no clear idea of where she's going, what an exit.
Yeah. Yeah, that is something that this show has begun to do a little bit. Not much, but season 3 will definitely do that. And it focuses things down to the main conflict in season 3, because it really, I mean, this is a show that does wrap up. It does have a satisfying ending, at least in my opinion, and stuff like that. So yeah, it's getting to be about that time where it's like focusing things in, like, okay, let's start to focus on who the main characters are here and what their conflict is. And so yeah, I don't remember like how much it really deals with her or stuff like that. So yeah, it could be exactly what you said there. But with that said, I think the next things that we should talk about is first I want to talk about Claudia a little bit more. Then I want to talk about Adam, because that's going to be the next like big thing that we need to talk about. So Claudia first, though, she seems to be figuring things out, playing chess, right? She seems to be moving pieces around to try and fight against Adam, who wants this like eternal cycle of this thing here, because then he can, I guess, just amass all of this power. And it's a strange way to amass power and to be influential and do all of this stuff, but they want to be in control of time to the point where they can remove themselves from time, if that makes sense. Like he had this whole conversation with Judge. I guess we're getting into all the Adam stuff instead of Claudia, but they're both really tied in there. But yeah, where he's like, I don't want to. Like he says things along the lines of like, I want to create a new time, but one where time does not exist, right? Because he has this idea that time is God. If you control time, like you are God, like all of that stuff. So that is essentially what he's trying to do, is like both become God as well as like remove himself from this whole thing so he can just exist outside of it, which I guess you could also say is a very like godly existence.
Yeah.
Right. And Claudia is trying to stop that. She's trying to fight against that and help break the cycle and set things back on a normal path. And she ends up being called the White Devil a few times in here, because no one really understands what she's doing exactly. Some of the things seem very cold-hearted, of like, hey, like this is just how it works. This is how the game is played. Like we need to do these things, and yeah, I think for her, she also has that like whole bootstrap paradox thing where she is the cause of her father's death. She is the cause of Egon's death. And I think that is the thing that sets her on the path to become this white devil. Whereas she's actually like, no, I'm actually like trying to fight for the light here in this whole thing. But yeah, it's just, like she is a fascinating character because again, she is a Tiedemann, so she is this like one shade removed, but like still really involved in all of this stuff. What did you think of Claudia?
I think 1980s Claudia is one of my favorites. Not that I don't love the other, like the 1950s and like the old woman Claudia. I like them all. I love her in the 80s particularly because, and this is something I didn't key into until I was like in the later half of watching season 2. Just one of the only characters we see regularly looking nice. Like, she's always wearing makeup and she's got her hair all permed up and she's like wearing a nice outfit and like heels. Not to speak ill of any of the other female characters in the show, but it's just something I noticed. Like, she's the only one who does that. And I think that's why I like her, because she's so made up that it's like something I key into and that I like looking at. Like, I love how this is a beautiful show, but it is an unglamorous show. Like, no, I think when we first meet Regina, she's got a little bit of makeup on and her hair's in that nice bun when she's working at her hotel desk. But for the most part, like, it's all these just like frumpy, but just like very practical, busy, stressed out working women who are just have like simple haircuts and simple clothes and like no makeup. And again, not to like disparage them, there was something I noticed was making Claudia stand out to me. Like, she's somebody who's putting a lot of care into her appearance. which doesn't make her more valuable. That just makes it an interesting character trait that stands out among the cast, that's something that no matter how deep into time travel she's getting, no matter how frazzled her brain is, she gets up every morning and like puts on eyeliner.
Except until she becomes the white devil, in which she's just like, all right,
then
whatever.
It's all out the door.
But here's an interesting detail with that. Yeah, in season 1, she mentions that. She like looks back in the car mirror at her daughter Regina, and she's like, why don't you make yourself a little bit more presentable? And
that's right.
I don't remember exactly what she says, but her comment led me to believe, like, yeah, she is one of the most important and powerful women in the town, right? Where she has worked her way to the top of this nuclear power plant, which is like the job. Like, she is like top dog in the town. And so, yeah, I think there is like, this show obviously does not really comment on like what it was like to be a woman in the workforce back in the day and stuff like that. But I think you do get this one small detail that is like, yeah, women were in the workforce back then, but we're still having a hard time. I mean, they are still kind of today, but like there's this idea that women sometimes had to work like twice as hard to get to this like top spot. So she is like, yes, I'm going to be the boss, and I'm going to look nice, and I'm going to have my makeup on and my hair done, and I'm going to work extra hard. I'm going to look at these numbers and figure out, all of this stuff. And she does that. That is who she is. And then, yeah, once her life just starts to kind of go downhill because of all of the time travel, like she discovers the secret that the nuclear power plant is sitting on, which is this god particle, and that they've been lying about its existence, and that she now has to decide if she wants to continue lying about that existence or stuff like that, to her father's death and the fact that she caused it, to discovering time travel and realizing that her daughter gets cancer because of the exposure to all the radiation through her. Like, she was lucky enough to not get it, but her daughter was not. Like, all of this stuff is just like devastating to her, where she is starting to play this different game and is just like, well, I don't need to look like, I don't need to do my eyeliner to like fight against time travel and Adam to do all of that, right? She's like, I need to learn how to shoot a gun, maybe, and stuff like that, and survive in the wilderness.
Yeah, we see her like just before she makes that change, but it is, I love 1980s Claudia's like big curly hair. And that is something that you can watch devolving. Like, she's still, like, as we watch her life in this period in the 80s, she's still getting dressed up every day. She's still putting on the makeup. But you watch, like, her perm completely fall out over the course of these days. It's a really great, like, visual marker of her progression as a character.
That's great.
And there's a subplot this season, or just a motif that keeps coming up, that she's got heterochromia. She's got two different colored eyes. And like, that's how Egon recognizes when old Claudia comes to see him, which I had not picked up on before. And I think it was because, but also she's wearing that makeup. And that stood out to me because she's the only person in the show wearing makeup. Her and I think Bernadette. So I've never noticed her eyes, because I was like, oh, look.
And there's Agnes too. She's the one that also looks super fancy.
So yeah, she's the eyes didn't stick out to me because I was like, oh look, she's wearing eyeshadow. That's unusual in this show.
It's such a like not dimly lit, but like darkly colored show, right? There's grays and browns and blacks and stuff like that. Yeah, that like the color of her eyes doesn't really stand out. There's like one or two scenes where you can see it, but it's usually when they mention it that you have to look and be like, yeah, I guess, that one does look more blue. But yeah, it's not something you really pick up on until they mention it.
And you just mentioned Agnes. The flashback, well, not flashback, but when we go back to like 1953 and we see Agnes and Doris together, their little love scene is so sweet. I loved how happy it was. Like, it's passionate, but it's also like these two ladies having fun and having joy with each other in this interaction. And like I said, joy is hard to come by in this series. And every time I see it, it's very important.
Indeed. So I like Claudia a lot. She reminds me that there's have you seen the show 12 Monkeys? It's also a time travel show. It's a pretty decent show, especially for a like sci-fi channel original. I grew up with sci-fi being like B movies and stuff like that, but like the really, really bad B movies and stuff like that. And that's just kind of what I knew them for. And when I watched 12 Monkeys, I was actually like, oh, this is actually a decent show. Like I'm enjoying this. The production is pretty nice. But there's a character in there who's kind of a similar character that you eventually meet, where she is this older woman who is privy to a lot of the time travel stuff and is like playing chess with some of these characters, so to speak. And just has this wisdom that comes with that of like knowing how to play the game. And yeah, I like that kind of character a lot. But yeah, unfortunately, she bites the dust. And that is the end of Claudia, where she gets shot with a shotgun, all that stuff. But we need to talk about Adam.
Oh, Adam, what an addition to this show. The first time you see him in this mysterious, like, ornate room, you don't know where it is in physical space, where it is in time, what it's connected to.
There's no windows.
We still don't really know where it is. I think I forget. Like, if you go through a series of caves or something, maybe if you go down the steps in the church, I don't know. I forget where he is. It doesn't matter. He's in a
It seems it's connected with that church.
Room.
But it's like, it's connected with the church, but the church is like on top of this cave system, which makes me wonder if it's the same caves from Winden that we keep going in, because they have. Yeah, I think this is the site that they eventually built the power plant on, because the church seems to be in like the early 20s through 30s, whereas the power plant isn't built until the like 50s and stuff like that. So I think it's that same site. But yeah, they go like, you go down and in all this stuff, and then there's this like vast opening in the caves where they've built like columns and stuff. It looks like Nanda Parbat from the Batman ethos and stuff, where the Lake of Shadows is, and like all of that stuff. And yeah, they walk inside, and it's just this ornate, like beautiful room. And there's all of these, I guess like Renaissance era paintings and stuff, but it's all depictions of like heaven and hell and warring demons and angels and stuff like that. And there's just so much texture and detail. It's beautiful.
So. But we meet Adam, and he's a very old man, and you don't know what has happened to him. It looks like his entire body is scar tissue.
It looks like he's been
so
burnt.
Perplexing. That almost, yeah. Like, you don't know. Like, was this a man who was in a fire? Who is this? Why does he look like this? Where is he? You know nothing. You know his name. That's Adam, and like he's sort of in charge of Sic Mundus, or whatever the secret organization is. It's got like Noah in it. And yeah, he meets with young Jonas and reveals that he is old. He is the oldest Jonas. And he's like, this is what happens to you if you keep time traveling.
Oldest
like
of the
all
Jonas
of that time travel.
Brothers.
Yeah. This is what happens to you if you keep time traveling. Like your body can't handle it. Your body breaks down. He's got like an oxygen mask he's using sometimes, and his body's like completely scarred. It's a very striking, foreboding visual.
Absolutely. Yeah, and they're following Adam to kind of keep this cycle going. But within that, Noah eventually realizes that he's being used. That he's not really gonna be a part of this end plan that they're putting together, and he doesn't really tell his younger self that, because once he does realize it, he's like, I need my younger self to go through all the same stuff so he can be where I'm at today and try to kill Jonas like I'm about to do now. And yeah, it's just this. He instantly becomes this like terrible villain of just like, oh, Adam is evil. Like he's like, uh-oh, this is not good. What are we gonna do to stop him, right? And yeah, we still don't know by the end of season 2. That's not like they're like, hey, we have a plan. Here's the plan. Let's do it. And then season 3 is like, okay, we're enacting the plan. We're still just like, what is going on? Like, we don't know. How are we gonna fight this thing? But yeah, he's an interesting character because as evil and as menacing as he seems, he is also oddly resigned.
Yeah.
Like he's in no rush to do things. He's just like, well, this is it. This is life. And you're going to end up where I am one day. And that's it. That's life. Which is kind of a big theme of the show, right? This whole like predeterministic philosophy. But yeah, he has this like calmness to him that is just really fascinating.
Yeah,
he just there's so much in this show. There's so much that we have yet to discover in this show. So I'm excited to get onto season 3 once again, and to see what you think of the ending of this show.
I got a couple other things I want to talk about in season 2. I want to say that when the adults all find out that time travel is real, and then when the kids find out time travel is real, they find this out. Like, they go exploring in the caves, and then Bartos is there with his like little briefcase that Noah gave him, and like he won't tell them what's happening because it's a secret. It's like a terrible, like mind-bending secret to know. Like, it's good that he's not telling them, kind of. Like, you understand why he's not doing that. They tie him up and just leave him in the caves overnight.
Yep.
It's so cold. I can't believe there's like another generation of Nielsen's doing this to another generation of Tiedemans. I'm just going to tie you up and leave you in the wilderness overnight. It's so, what a cold thing to do. That the kids get into time travel. And I like that dynamic when the kids are into time travel and then Katarina has to like scold them for it. I love that it's like some semblance of like normal family interaction of like, kids, I told you to stay away from that. You're in big trouble, but it's about time travel devices.
Yeah.
I like to get a bit of some normal family interaction back, even if it's about something completely wild.
Indeed.
I want to talk about the character map and like what holes we still need to have filled in.
Yeah.
So
if you remember, Netflix has a website. I believe it's a Netflix site that has all, but it has a timeline and like family tree map that you guys can look at that is all spoiler free. It's all based on like what season you're on, what number you're on, like all that stuff. So you can enter that in, and it will only show you the stuff that you've learned so far.
It's invaluable. You have to have this open. It's called dark.netflix.io. That's the website. Yeah, you can pick your specific episode and view resources in time with that episode so you don't spoil yourself. And it's got a very helpful character map. So we found out these are our missing relatives that we still need to fill out. I want to keep track of this. So we found out that Charlotte's parents are Noah and her daughter Elizabeth in a recursive loop. We still don't know who Peter's mother is, and we don't know who Helg's father is. We know that his mother Greta is married to Bernd Doppler, who used to be in charge of the power plant before Claudia took over. But yeah, it's so funny. There's like a black square with a question mark on it for who Helg's father is, which they don't use anywhere else in this character map. It's only there. I think specifically because Greta alludes to Bernd isn't the father. Like, I think that's like a more known overt hole in the story. And that's why it gets this like, ooh, guess who? Who is it?
Yeah.
So we don't know Helg's father, Peter's mother. We still don't know Regina's father. Although I wonder if it could be, what's his name? If it could be Trant Nielsen, because Claudia and Trant were like buddies when they were young. There's that weird scene. They're like, I don't know, 12 years old or something. They're walking to school and she like asks him if he'll.
Trant, isn't he Ulrich's father?
Yeah.
Yeah, because we see him when he's older. And he's Ulrich's father.
Yeah, and like they grew up together because Trant and Agnes were boarders in the T. Demons house. And there's a scene where like it's like 12-year-old Trant and Claudia, and they're walking to school and they're walking through the woods, and she asks him if he'll like pull his pants down and just show her what a penis looks like, and she's like, "Oh, that's what it is." It's
as
what
one does.
Weird scene, right? So I wonder if that's the family link, which then means Bartosz also can't date Martha. It's so awful and funny that none of these teen relationships will work because you are all secretly related to each other. Somebody has to get out of the town. The town needs fresh blood in it.
Yeah.
Right. So we're missing that. We're still missing we don't know Hannah's mother, but we saw her father and he seems like such a normal guy that I wonder if that's like not a mystery. It's like they're just divorced or her mother died or something. I don't think every single one of these are mystery boxes to unfold. Some of these absences in family lines do seem suspicious, and other ones are like, you can have a single parent household and it's not suspicious, I guess. So I don't know about that one. And then I have to ask you about this. There is, in this family chart, I don't know if you've ever looked at it. It's not super clear. I mean, there's lines drawn between everybody, but like the lines between a parent and a child and the lines between a couple are the same line. Like there's not a lot of like differentiation between it and the way this
arrows
is formatted.
On some of them to do that, but it's not
everywhere.
Your traditional. It's right because there's time travel shenanigans and stuff like that. It's not your traditional family tree of like the father and mother are on top and their children are underneath that and their children are underneath that. It's there's
all
things
over the place.
Yeah. So what is your question?
There's a line off of Katerina And it's been there like since I first looked up this family tree on like season 1, episode 3. This guy's always been there. There's a line from her to a guy named Herman Albers, who I don't remember ever meeting. Is that her
dad? Yes, I believe so. If I remember, let me see here. Let me look him up. Herman Albers from
because he's not on like the character list either. You've got this map, and then there's like a list of short character profiles you can read, and it goes down to like Gretchen the dog has a character profile. It's really specific, but this guy's not on there. And I think it's her dad, who we've had allusions to, but I don't think we've ever really seen.
Yeah, it's Katharina's father. Let's see. There's is there really anything? Was a farmer in Winden. 86 in the morning. Oh, he was the farmer with the sheep that died.
Okay, right.
That's him.
That's
him there.
He's always been here on the chart, but he plays such a minor role. Like, I forgot from that one scene who he was. I'm like, have we yet to meet this guy? Why has he been here? Okay, that's Herman Albers.
Yeah, he's wondering. He's not a super important character.
Right. Okay. I completely forgot about him, and I just keep staring at him like I must have met you, right? I don't remember you. Because I'm wondering, because when like I said, the way this chart is drawn out, like relationship lines aren't super clear. And when he first appeared on this family chart, I'm like, oh, maybe this is like an affair she's having and we'll meet this guy soon. And then we didn't. And then I like missed in the scene where they went back in time and it's like, yeah, that's her dad. It's just a face and a name and like a line that I could never really untangle. Because I was wondering, because Jonas and Martha are such a important relationship in this show. Like they've got such romantic stuff this season, and you can tell he's haunted by the fact that he's still so in love with her. But he is so in love with her. Decades on into this time travel journey, he's like always thinking about her, and she really sincerely loves him too. It's like that is the core driving romance of this show. Is a boy and a girl who, due to time travel nonsense, she is his aunt. And I'm like, is the story going to put in a, is it going to break that down? Like, oh no, she's not really his aunt because Katarina had an affair one time, so that's not Ulrich's daughter. Or was it going to do anything like that to make the audience feel better about what this romance is? Make the characters themselves feel better about it?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm wondering if there's going to be any surprises like that. Because like I said, when we look at the current map, there's so many like, no, I understand you want to date that person. You know you are related to them, right?
Yep. Yeah, this show has quite a bit of that. And I think it's fascinating and a fun challenge to kind of figure out the family trees and how all of that connects and stuff like that. However, to mention Lost, like we typically do, since we're both big fans of that, at the end of the day, that's not what the show is about. Like, it's not about the family trees. And while I do think this show, like, satisfyingly like wraps up all of that stuff. Season 3 especially will focus on more the conspiracy, the stuff that it, like this big, like, who is Adam fighting? They you know, what's going on with all of that stuff. So you learn more of the bigger picture in season 3, and it ends up wrapping up very nicely.
I'm sure it will. This seems like such a cohesive show. I think I just wonder sometimes really what holes in the character map am I meant to be wondering about, and which ones aren't I? I wish
it's
it was more clearly
delineated.
delineated. Like, I wish they would just mention, like, oh, Regina's father left, or or Peter's mother died, so that I know those characters aren't a mystery.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, I wish I would have more of those and not stare at this character map, wondering if, like, this branch that isn't there means something.
Yeah. I do once again want to commend the show on how well this show is made, because there is not a wasted moment whatsoever. Like, every scene has some importance or is some metaphor or introduces some concept or something. And this absolutely is a show that the creators had to go into knowing the ending of the show. Like, there's absolutely no way that you can make up something like this as you go along and have it be successful and wrap up neatly and stuff like that, which is unfortunately what happened with Lost, right? And it's like, they were kind of making it up as they went. That's why it was so controversial when they finally wrapped it all up. But yeah, this show is just like, every single moment is something. It is something that is meaningful, and it's just I love it. Like, I was sitting there, like, the scenes when they are in the power plant. And they are inspecting the floor that they've had all shut down where the God particle is, and it's all in those yellow barrels and stuff. Just the visuals and the tension that's going on there with this outside investigator and all this stuff of you knowing, like, hey, like, this thing is important. I don't know exactly what it is yet, but like, I was just sitting there being like, man, this show is so fucking cool. Like, I love watching this. This is great.
It looks so good. It uses its visuals to this great narrative purpose. Like, I could watch the show again and only pay attention to the color yellow and to how it's used to, like, connect Jonas, connect to his family line. I think we see Mikkel when he's a boy wearing a yellow shirt. Look for the yellow in the barrels and in the woman
in yellow,
safety
Agnes.
outfits, right? And Agnes's outfit, one of Jonas is one of her descendants. You could pick, like, a color. You could pick one element. You could watch only rain throughout this entire season. You could watch only, like, jewelry and accessories for an entire time. It's doing so much with what it has, and I also want to shout out the musical montages it puts towards the end of many episodes, which is very helpful in a show with all this wacky time travel stuff, that it's got this repeated structural motif within the episodes that you can expect. I don't think it's in all of them, but most episodes have, like, 10 or 15 minutes from the end, a montage where you check in with all of these characters in their dark days, and it plays a song, which is a very common thing for TV shows to do, but it struck me that that's often, like, the final scene in a TV episode is that scene. But this so often does it and then has 10 minutes more to add on, like, more twists and conclusions and doors closing and doors opening.
It has the, like, check-in montage and then the final scene of, like, let's tease you for something else. And it works.
I really like that
beautifully.
Structure a lot.
Yeah.
So many of these montages are great, and they go across time. You check in on, like, years young Regina and old Regina. I dig what that show does with this very common TV drama motif, how it turns even that into something new.
Yeah. I am to piggyback off of that and what you said about the color yellow. I'll get to that one in a sec, but this show uses music really effectively, and I think one of the things that I noticed this time around is that one of the more, like, the happier moments you see or you hear about are these, like, songs from the 1980s, right? These, like, pop songs that are, like, upbeat and happy and all that stuff. But the way they use them in this show turns them into these, like, haunting songs that is just, like, this is weird. Like, I never thought about the lyrics in that sense. And it's just like, this is kind of spooky to hear these like upbeat songs in this setting. And it's kind of wild.
There's a scene where it's in the 80s, and I've mentioned Claudia, and she's done up, and she looks like a 1980s businesswoman. She looks like what you picture when you picture that. She's got the big hair and the brightly colored outfits and the heels. And it's just a scene where she's like trying to get Regina like ready to go to school. And she's like arguing with Egon about something. And in the background on a radio, they're playing Never Gonna Give You Up, which makes that song feel like so pitiful placed in this context. Like, process, like the how time proceeds, how much disaster and pain and fallout and like true grandiose struggles are happening, and then among all of that, one time a guy sang a song about never giving somebody up. Like, it makes those big hit songs that we all know, we've all heard hundreds of times, make them seem like these tiny little particles of sand in the wind. It's like, you're not nothing to Rick Astley. Who do you think you are in the grand scheme of Earth and time? You're this blip. You're this small, pitiful thing.
You just got cosmically rickrolled. Like,
I know. It just looks at like how we spent so much time in the 80s, and it just paints it in such a like, I don't know. It's like everything is fleeting 80s. Fine, have your fun. Have your Rick Astley and your bright colors.
It's that, but then it's also the fact that we know where some of these characters end up, and this idea of like never gonna give you up, or is like, sure, that character might have this attachment to their family that they want to protect them and support them and never give them up. But you're also the one that, because of that, like, you basically kill them all because of that. And it's like, that's what I mean. Like, it becomes this, like, these haunting songs of like, I never thought of it like that. It's just like, these are like spooky to think of. In that
or like
way.
the scene at the anniversary party where Katarina's dancing around. She's dancing to Heaven is a Place on Earth, which is such a bright, beautiful song, and it makes it extra poignant. Like, no moment in the show has been as happy as that song is.
Yeah, and it's like,
they're all like, so far away from heaven.
In that moment, that's what they're in. But like, the next day,
that's as close as they ever get.
Everything is gonna be hell. All hell just breaks loose, and it's also a place on Earth, and it is Winden.
Yes, yes.
But then to go back to the color yellow, I know H.P. Lovecraft used this motif of I believe it was a smaller child, but the child in yellow, or like the girl in yellow, who was this, I don't know how prevalent it's in through all of his stuff, but was a recurring kind of motif or a character. And so I'm wondering how much that is a, like, all of the yellow that we see here in Dark is a reference to that, of just being like, this whole thing is just this like one big giant cosmic horror, right? Of everyone is everyone's relative, and yeah, it's just like there's so much stuff that you can pull out and pick apart. There's just, so good. So good. This is a good show.
It's
good
playing
show.
with so much. I'm very excited for season 3 to see where the heck all of this is going. I'm excited to see that other timeline with Goth Martha. I want to see how the relationships wrap up. If they are able to hit a reset, what that reset looks like. Jonas is so prepared to just erase himself from existence. Like in season 1, he's like come to terms with that, like to set things right to stop my dad from dying. I have to stop him from ever going back in time at all. I have to stop this family from losing their son, their brother, and therefore that he'll never grow up to be my dad. I won't exist. Yeah. Like, he's like ready to do that. I mean, where is this journey going to go? How are we going to see him behave when it comes time to actually take whatever final step it might take to maybe make that happen, if that is the solution? I don't know what the win term is for this story.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember when I was watching season 3 for the first time last year. Yeah, I was like, I have no idea how this is going to end. I have no idea how they're going to wrap this up, but it was beautiful. That is all I will say.
Yes.
So, speaking of season 3 and when we're going to watch that, I've mentioned it now on Captain's Log and Crossplay. I am actually going to be taking a vacation from the show, and there's going to be 3 weekends that I'm not going to be available to record. And one of those weekends will be the final week in July, which is when we would normally record this stuff, because it is our end of the month special. So I think for season 3 of Dark in particular, we should maybe move that to just that first one when I get back. Which or
you leave on the 23rd, don't you? Or when do you leave?
I leave on the 16th.
Oh, okay.
On July 16th. And it's those
honestly,
weekends.
We've got our episode picked out for next week already. I would be ready to talk about Dark Season 3 in 2 weeks. If you want to just move it up. It's up to you.
I mean, we can do that if you really want to. I was also going to suggest we could, I know for you personally, Mondays are usually not a good day, but we could do it like that Monday or Tuesday, the 2nd or 3rd of August, or just that next weekend on the 8th there. So, doesn't matter to me. I'm fine with whatever. So if you want to be like, oh, this show's so good, I just want to dive right in.
Dark,
I'm okay with that.
Dark, it's so complex. There's so much going on. Like I said, we met a character and then I completely forgot who he was, even though he was sitting there on the character map the whole time. Like, I just look at him and I'm like,
He's
I met
not
that
an
guy?
Important one. Yeah.
Right. But like, there's so many important things. Like you said, everything's important. This is such a dense show. I kind of want to ride the like mindset I am in now and just finish season 3 quickly after season 2 so that I can get the most out of it. Because I feel like if we leave this for like another 5 weeks, like details are going to like just completely sink out of my brain.
That makes sense.
But like, if we do this in 2 weeks, like, I'm psyched. I'm ready to start season 3 tonight. So do you just want to do it in 2 weeks?
Sure. I'm okay with that. I think that actually ends up working out perfectly, because that would mean we record it on the 11th. And then I leave on the 16th. So it would be the last one that I do before I go on my vacation there. Yeah,
and then you don't have to like watch Dark season 3 on vacation. This doesn't sound like a vacation show.
It's a vacation show for me, Melissa. I love it.
Some light
Give me
summer
the time
watching.
travel shenanigans. Yeah, I'm good with that. Let's see. What did I want to say anything else on that stuff? Yeah, I guess because I am going on vacation for those 3 weeks, the show may or may not be slightly different. I don't know if there's going to be a video show component of that. I will have to set Melissa up, I think, to just be like, hey, we have our recordings. Here's a template, or here's all the stuff you need to, export that out as a podcast. So yeah, just a heads up on that. There might not be a video component for a couple weeks there, but if everything goes according to plan, I think we still should have a show going out there. But yeah, I'm excited It's a big deal for me because I've been on every single show that the Whatnauts has put out in its 5+ years of existence, except for 2 that I've not been on completely, and then there are 2 more that I've been like a producer on in air quotes, where I was like behind the scenes recording things there. So I've basically been on everything. Which this is going to be nice that I think we're finally at a place where we can almost limp along and right, just be like, hey, we're still going.
Right. Like we could still exist. Like the YouTube thing will be different. We'll just be audio over a still image, maybe. Or maybe it's a small animation. I don't know what you have prepared. I don't want to reduce your skills to still images only. Yeah, like the podcast should be the same. Like if you just listen to the audio files of this, there will probably be practically no change.
Sure. Cool. I think that's about it then for Dark and announcements and stuff like that. Do you want to do an update to Bingo?
Yes, that's right.
We've been playing Bingo with this here. Let me open up my Bingo card. Bingo, where do you go? Bingo. That's documents. I don't need documents. I need my desktop. It's on my desktop. Bingo.
Right.
Yeah, so we've been playing Bingo with different movie tropes and stuff like that. Different comic book tropes. Melissa, do you have anything else you can add to your Bingo card?
Oh,
because I don't think I do.
We kind of have. It's not the context in which I imagined it, but we kind of have we're not so different, you and I, with Adam and Jonas.
Interesting.
We don't have like the perfect why are you telling me this scene in this show.
Well, yeah, I feel like the whole show is that.
Right.
I'm just like, why would you tell me this?
You remember scenes on Lost? Lost did this so hard where somebody would just stop and stare into the distance and talk about something from their backstory. Like Locke is talking about, my sister Jeannie died when I was 12 years old, and Boone's like, I don't know how that's going to help us get into the hatch, John. Like that's the moment I'm thinking about. It's a very nice foot, Richard.
Oh, good stuff. Okay, yeah. I think the only one that I have that is like arguable on mine is Ancient Evil. But even then, I don't necessarily consider this ancient.
Right. It goes back to
like
the
1920.
farthest back we've seen it. Right. It goes back 100 years.
Yeah, it's not really ancient.
We didn't write Centennial Evil.
Right. Yeah, I don't think I personally have anything that I can put on there.
Oh man, we don't have any ghosts.
No
I wish
ghosts.
this show had a ghost.
I ain't scared of no ghost. Yeah. So no update for Bingo for me on this one. A rare occasion where there's nothing.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, that's that. We don't do recommendations in the middle of all of this stuff. We only do it at the beginning and the end of watching these shows. So Melissa, do you want to fill us in on what we will be doing next week?
Yeah, next week we are watching a show on Netflix. Let me double check what it is called. Select my own profile. Select the search button.
I never sign into Netflix on my computer.
It's called Kantaro, the Sweet Tooth Salaryman. This is a live-action Japanese comedy series on Netflix. I think it's like 8 episodes, 8 or 10. It's not very long, and it is
cool.
Oof. Yeah, it is 10 like kind of half-hour-ish episodes, and it is about a salary man, a guy who works in the publishing industry in Japan. He travels around on these client visits. He's a very serious company man, but secretly he loves sweets. He loves desserts, and after all of these client calls, he like goes out to a local cafe and like eats some decadent dessert and like photographs it for a blog. And he's like, nobody can ever learn my secret. Nobody's going to take me seriously if they find out I'm super into pastries.
Yeah. Sounds funny.
This will be the perfect palate cleanser between 2 seasons of Dark.
Yes, absolutely. This is just going to be pure joy and comedy and stuff like that. Yeah. And then as we just decided, in 2 weeks, we will cover the 3rd and final season of Dark. So next week, it's Kentaro and what was it? The salaryman of
Kantaro, 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 Kentaro, the sweet tooth salary man.
The sweet tooth salary man. Okay, interesting. Yeah, I'm looking forward to all of that. Yeah, there you go. That's what we'll be up to next week. Melissa, where can they find you on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Wilkywit. That's WILKYWIT. And listen to my other podcast, Saturday Morning Obscurities, where me and my brother Jams talk about weird old kids shows you feel like only you remember. Our latest episode is on the Nick Jr. cartoon Rupert, which is just like a wholesome, like, it's very big Paddington Bear vibes. It is about like a little polar bear boy who's wearing like plaid trousers and a scarf, and he goes on like little adventures. It's really pleasant. It's good stuff.
Cool. If you guys want to stay up to date with me, I'm at YoKyleSpringer on Twitter. And if you guys want to stay up to date with all of the stuff that we do here at the Whatnauts, we are at the Whatnauts on Twitter. So please go like, share, subscribe. You guys know the deal with all of that stuff. And yeah, we would appreciate it a lot if you guys could go do all of that. But with that, this has been number 163 of the Whatnauts Review Show. We will see you all next time. Bye.
Bye.